Today we'll be learning how to make this abstract motion design in Blender geometry nodes. You'll use transform nodes to stack geometry, procedurally animate the twist, add cool textures, light, and compose and render. First thing, we are going to do some super basic modeling. We've got the default cube. Let's tab into edit mode. This is a 2x2 cube, and we want this to be flat on the floor with the origin point at the very bottom. So we can press GZ1 to shift that up. Let's set the pivot point to 3D cursor. Press S to scale this down on Z, and I'm going to scale this 0.05 just so we have a really flat box to work with. And if we go into the modifiers, Shift A, and let's add a bevel node. And that's too large of a bevel, so let's drag the amount back a bit, and we'll give it a few more segments. Maybe 3 is good. And let's right click to shade that smooth, and Shift A on the modifiers to bring in a weighted normal. So now we can just move this to the side. We'll GX maybe 3, just push that off to the side. And then let's Shift A to bring in a plane. And on this plane, we'll go into geometry nodes. This will be the geometry that we had our geometry node set up. So we can press X to delete that. And now I want to bring in some points. Let's do 25 points. Alt Shift click to connect that. Now we've got 25 points sitting right in the center of the world there. Let's start to throw some geometry on top of those points. We'll Shift A, bring in an instance on points node. And from the outliner, we'll take that cube, drag that in, and then connect the geometry to the instance. So now it looks like there's only one square here, but there's actually, if you look up here in the geometry, there's 25 cubes, there's 25 instances. So we need to start stacking these up. So for this, I'm going to bring in a set instance transform. This will deal with the transforms of these instances. What we're going to do is we're going to take a running total of the height of all these instances. So the bottommost square won't have any offset. The square above that will be offset the height of the square below it. And then the square above that will be offset the height of the 2 squares below it. So this is based off a Blender video that came out a while ago using matrix nodes. So what we can do is we can take this geometry and we'll grab the bounding box of this geometry. And this gives us a max and a min. We want to take the max because we want to know the max height. So we can isolate that height with a vector math node set to multiply. And we'll just multiply the height by 1 so we can extract that height value out. And now what we can do is drag that into a combined transform into the translation. So this will say we'll translate this instance on the z-axis, the height of the bounding box of this square. But what we need to do for all these instances is we need to accumulate a total of these heights. So we can bring in an accumulate field, and that will keep a running total of the heights per instance. And then using this trailing output, we can separate the transform and recombine that into another transform here by plugging in the translation, the rotation, and the scale. We'll have to bring in the original instance scale just to preserve that scale. And if we plug that into this transform node, nothing happens. And as I was playing with these nodes, I did this all the time. So make sure you set on the accumulate field node the domain. And in this case, we want to compute the domain instances. So once we adjust that from points to instances, now we get all these instances stacked on top of each other. So if the heights were ever to change, this would dynamically change as well. It's really cool. So now we can give this a bit of spacing by just shifting this 1 point to maybe like 1.1. Yeah, let's leave it at 1.1 for now. So now we've got all these squares stacked up. So what I want to do is make these squares scale to a smaller size as they stack higher and higher. So to do that, I'm going to use a different approach than the transforms. I'm just going to scale the instances. And now we need to compute what the scale should be per instance. And we can do that with a map range. And here we see that if we take a value, we can adjust the value going from a range of 0 to 1 to a new range of min to max. And so if we bring in an index node and we plug that into the from minimum, we know that our index will go from 0 to 24. So that's our range. That's our min and our max. So we need to dynamically compute what this max is. So a little bit above, let's bring in a domain size. And from this instances output, plug that into the geometry. And let's change the mesh to instances. Now that gives us an instance count. And if we subtract 1 from this, because this is 0-based indices, this will output 25 instances. This will output index max of 24. So now we can plug that into the from max, and that will give us this 0 to 1. So index 0 will have a scale of 0, and the last index will have a scale of 1, which isn't quite what we want. But if we take that and combine that into an XYZ for the X and the Y to keep this square, we want Z to remain a scale of 1. We don't want to alter the scale. We plug that into the scale there. Oh, What happened? Why is that so small? We got this really wonky output. Basically, all of our squares disappear. So let's flip this. We want index 0 instance to be scale of 1. And so now it goes from scale of 1 to scale of 1. But as we dial this 2max back, my bad, I connected the index to the from min. That should be the value. So now the from min is 0. From max is our count, -1. And now if we dial this 2max back, now we start to scale these like a pyramid. So I'm going to leave that at 0.4. So now we've got this pyramid look to these boxes. So let's start spinning these squares. Let's shift A to bring in a scene time node. And we'll set up our animation driver like always. We'll take this frame and we'll divide that by the number of frames that we have in this animation. Copy as new driver, right click and paste that driver. And now I want to multiply this by pi over 2, basically 90 degrees. And if we take the number of indices in our geometry, we bring in an index node, and if we divide our index by the number of max indices we have, and we times this together, we'll want to multiply this again by a certain number of steps to make sure that we spin all the squares around a sufficient number of times so that they end up aligned just as they are at the start here. So we'll play with that number in a minute. But if we take that output and combine that into an XYZ onto the Z input, I think what we can do is just take that combine and plug that into the rotation. And if I just pump this up a few times, there we go, 5. So we start to see this twist, and that's really slow. So let's speed that up as we build this out. So now at the end of our animation, we're going to want to make sure that it spins enough times to get back to, in our case, it's 24 with 100 frames. I think if we adjust this to say 500, and we go to frame 500, 24 looks good on 500 as well. So there's frame 1, shift right to go to the end frame, press the arrow key one more time, and shift left to go back to the start of the animation. So that's a perfect loop. So we can press play to spin it. We'll get this twisting effect. Again, right now it's really slow. You can speed up the animation by decreasing the number of frames if you want, which I'm going to go back to again. So 120. Cool, so right now it's animating linearly. So 0 to 1, straight line, no fancy interpolation or anything, but we can add some easy easing, see what I did there, just with the map range node. And that gives us this option here. Linear means, and let me just show you really quick, linear means this interpolation, 0 to 1, the values are what they are. But if you were to give this a smooth step, then that starts to shape the interpolation like that. So there's some easing at the start and at the end. And smoother step is even smoother. So it looks more like that. It's more of a vertical line in the middle and a more gradual ease at the start and at the end. So we can leave that at smoother step and go back to the animation. And now it gives it this accelerating feel at the start and a decelerating feel at the end. And then it just loops. Cool, that's pretty cool. All right, so let's dive into the shading. Let's quickly add a set material here before we forget. Set material, select the default material there. One thing I want to do is I want to give this shader some variation as the squares go from bottom to top. So to do that, let's give it a factor. If we store named attribute on this geometry and set it to be a float on the instance, we'll call this color factor. And we want to go from 0 at the bottom to 1 at the top. I wonder if there's a way to quickly view that with the viewer node here. I'm just going to plug the index in to here, and then I'm going to go to this menu and turn on, this is the viewport overlays, turn on attribute text, turn off the color, and this should be on the instance. So now we can start to see, yeah, so as we go from instance 0, index 0, to the top, 24, I want there to be a color gradient. So we already calculated what that factor is, which is right here, actually. So press F, and I'm just going to call this T. Whatever our index is divided by the max index gives us a value of 0 to 1. So we can take T and plug that into our value in the store named attribute node. And now we can read that in our material when we go to the shading tab. So let's select our material here, click the principal node and press Control T. And I don't need this image texture, so I'll press X to get rid of that and plug that back in. Let's use the object coordinates and let's throw really quick some Voronoi on here. I'm going to zoom into this single square here. We're going to make a bunch of dots on top. Nothing fancy, just a bit of texture. So to do that, we can set our scale to be 50. And we've got all these little dots here. And we can take a math node, drop that on, and set this to greater than. And let's Control-Shift-Click to see that. And I actually want to see the distance here, and that gives us these nice circles. And if we want to increase the size or decrease, we can bring in a map range node and we can adjust the from min to give us more dots like so. Now you can see this repeated pattern right here. See how each instance has the same texture pattern. So what we can do to give it some variation is we can change the Voronoi to be a 4D, and then we can play with this W. That'll give us a different seed basically for this noise. And if we bring in a random object info node and plug that into the W, now that's going to give us a random value between 0 and 1. And so we start to see a lot more variation throughout this stack. And we can increase that variation because it's 0 to 1. It's not a big difference, but we can increase it by just multiplying that 0 to 1 value by 100. So now we get a much wider range of variation through this stack. All right, so let's splash some color onto here. Let's look at this principled BSDF, Control-Shift-click that, and let's pull in a color ramp, CRA color ramp. Let's plug that into the base color. And what we want to do is now we want to read that attribute that we stored on the geometry, on the instancer, and we called it color factor rather. And we can take that factor and plug it into the color ramp. Now we can start to see how that color is changing from the bottom to top. And I want 3 stops on this color ramp. And for the first color, I'll click the stop there, click the color. I'm just going to paste in the hex code 0064B5FF. That gives me a blue. And the second stop, I'll click the color and paste in 7 Bravo 42 Echo 6 Foxtrot Foxtrot. Getting fancy with the alphabet. And the last stop, I'll bring in this orange, which is Foxtrot Foxtrot 8 Echo 00 Foxtrot Foxtrot. So a nice orange there, and ooh, that is a nice gradient. From blue to orange, a bit of purple in between. We can change this stop to whatever position we want. If we want a bit more purple, we can do that. It's kind of got some sunset vibes, sunrise vibes. So now I want to take this color and I want to mix it. We've got this black and white mask that we looked at here. I want to mix this mask so that we've got a base color that will come from the color ramp, and the dots will be the opposite side of the color ramp. And then as we get to the top square, we'll have the base color be the top of the ramp and the dots will be the bottom. So let's Shift D the color ramp, and I'm going to take this factor, plug that into the factor there, but then I need to invert this color. So now the values are flipped from 0 to 1, and now they're 1 to 0. So if we Shift A to bring in a mixed color node and plug in, so I'm just going to plug these in like this, and then plug in the greater than to be the factor. And if we plug that output into the base color and Control-Shift-click the principled, now we start to see the dots on top. And now we have like the contrast, the blue and the orange dots versus the orange and the blue dots. The purple kind of loses the dots because it's just in the middle. Actually, maybe what I'll do for that purple is try to take, let's see, I don't know which one's going to work here. That looks better. Now we can see the dots. Quick confession, it turns out that this isn't perfectly looping. I didn't realize this doing the project, but if you look at the start and end frame, now that we have the texture on, it does actually change because these squares aren't all turning a perfect 360 degrees. All right, so let's also give this some subsurface. Let's go to rendered. And if we turn off the scene lights and the scene world for now, let's change our render engine to be cycles. Because what I want to do is I want to start seeing some subsurface scattering. And let's take this color and plug that into the radius. And let's start turning up these dials to start seeing some light scattering through these squares. Maybe what we should do to see that is let's Shift A and just start bringing in some lighting. So let's bring in an area light. And we'll jump to our layout so we can see that. Grab that on the Z. And if we go to rendered, let's bump up the brightness of that light. And let's increase the size to be maybe 5. And maybe the power will go a little bit higher there. Let's Shift A to bring in another area light. Let's rotate that on the X, -9 degrees. Pull it back on the Y. And let's rotate it on its individual origin. We can press period to pull up the pivot point menu, individual origins, RX. We'll just aim that from the bottom up a bit. And let's increase the size, maybe double it, and jump the power up to something really strong like 1000. Okay, let's actually change this color ramp to be the radius of the subsurf, and let's turn the scale up. I don't want it to glow too much, but there is light starting to scatter in those edges, so I think I'm pretty happy with that. Now, one thing to point out with this setup, as we're scaling this procedurally, you'll notice that as we scale more to the top, it actually starts to compress the texture. I don't know how to fix that, honestly. I'm sure there's things I can do with UVs in geometrynodes that right now I'm just not aware of. So that'll be a learning exercise for me in the future. But I like the look of this glow that's happening here. And maybe let's go and turn on denoise. So that's looking pretty good. All right, so let's turn down the world noise here to strength of 0. And let's go up to our viewport shading and let's start using the scene lights and scene world. That is pretty nice as far as like the glow from that backlight. We'll call that backlight, and we'll call this first one top light. And the backlight, I want to give that some color. So if we click the light bulb there, we can change the color to be something that fits the scene a little bit better. Maybe like this orange. And that's looking pretty cool. So if we press play and start to see this thing spin, that's looking pretty neat. I want to see this camera. Let's reset the camera. If we click it and press Alt-R, Alt-G, maybe let's go into layout for this and go to solid mode. Press RX90. Actually, no, let me show you a different way. I forgot about this way to set up the camera. If you go into view camera, right now we're staring at the very bottom of this geometry. But if we press this lock button, this is really cool. Now we can move our camera around just like we navigate the viewport, and we can compose our scene that way. So once this is lined up in the way you like, and you can experiment with the camera settings down here to change the focal length. So it could be something a little more extreme like 25, and just zoom that in like that. Dead center is kind of boring composition, but let's go with it for now. What does render look like? It's looking kind of cool. When you're happy with the composition, just make sure you take the lock off so that when you rotate around, it doesn't move your camera. Let's go to that top plane, the top light, and maybe turn the size down. There we go. So now we're getting some more dramatic shadows. We've got the glow at the top, dramatic shadows through the sides. And last thing I want to do is I want to try to get a bit of a rim light here. So let's set the pivot point to 3D cursor, Shift D to duplicate this, and let's rotate on Z to bring that around to the side. And if we go into rendered, and we've got this glow on the side as well, I might bring that up on the Y a little bit and change the color maybe to a blue. So it's contrasting that blue and the orange. That looks pretty sweet. I'm going to set the camera to be this view right here. So view, align active camera to view, and then clicking the lock so I can zoom in and just center that a bit. So I'm pretty happy with that. And let's click the lock. So the setup's pretty good. You can click the camera here to just tweak it a little bit. I think that might be pretty good. So this object down here is going to be in our animations. So before you animate, make sure that you disable this cube that we modeled from the animation. So we can just disable the camera here and it won't show up in the render, although we can still see it in the viewport when we need it. Okay, so now to set up the render, let's go to our output. I'm going to change the frame rate to 60 FPS. That's what I'm recording in. If I set the solid mode and play that back, that's going to be crazy fast. So I'm going to slow that down and change that to 400 frames. I'm going to set the resolution to 2560 by 1440p image. And since I'm going to be rendering in cycles, again, I'm going to do just single images. So I'll set this to RGB. Color depth 8's good, compression none. Oh, we should check the color management too. If we press Z and go to rendered and go to our render and color management at the bottom, if we change the look to be medium high contrast, it's a little bit punchier there. I like that. I wonder what a bloom effect would look like really quick on here. Let's just press N and I'm going to render this image really quick. And we're back. All right. Whew. 2 minutes, 40 seconds for this frame. I need a better GPU. My goodness. Yeah, so we've got our compositor here. Let's Shift A to bring in a glare node. Ooh, okay, this has some promise. Change it to bloom and high quality. I'm going to go to options and change my performance to GPU. And let's see, if you press V or Alt V, you can zoom in and out of this image. Okay, that bloom is really good. I like that. And I think that's good. I'm a little concerned how long this is going to take. I've got 400 frames, 2.5 minutes a frame. I'll see you on the other side. Let's go to render and render the animation. So the project turned out pretty cool. A couple snags along the way, but that's all right. And since geometry nodes is clearly your thing, I'd highly recommend checking out this video popping up right now.